The Starr and D'Amico Show, brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Need blanks for your next event or club? Check out cheapesttshirts.ca. No minimum order, free shipping over $350. Same-day shipping on lots of items. Affordable, Canadian, ready to print your design. Brought to you by Catherine Prince at Remax Platine, your Montreal real estate connection. Call her at 514-702-2474 or email Catherine with a K, Catherine at catherineprince.com. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest with confidence, Catherine Prince, your key to the city's property market. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Looking for a lively downtown spot with great food and atmosphere? Come to McLean's Pub on Peel Street. Classic pub eats, plenty of beer, and all the sports on all the screens. Grab your friends and make McLean's your go-to place tonight. Brought to you by Cabletel, your full-service telecom partner for business and home. From structured cabling and phone systems to Wi-Fi, cameras, and alarms, Cabletel keeps you connected, secure, and performing at your best. Your partner for the future. It's Cabletel.
Hi, I'm Audrey. My parents, Chuck and Evie, are too busy caring about your pets, so I'm here to remind you to check out a family-owned store, Little Bear Pet Supplies. Can you believe it's been there for almost 30 years? They know that your pets are family too, and they've made shopping easy this holiday season, with fun toys and healthy treats that you won't find everywhere. They even offer fast home delivery, and my brother and I sometimes help too. Please shop local this year.
Thanks, Audrey. Come visit us at 4152 St. Catherine Street West, littlebearonline.com, or find us on the Uber Eats app.
We are live from Mison Public, McLean's. It is live show numero 3. That's fancy speak for live show number 3. I am Shaun Starr. Good to be seen, good to be heard as always. And there's my partner in crime, Marco D'Amico with RG Media. Marco, what is good? Welcome to Mison Public, McLean.
Yeah, it's been fun setting up here with everybody. I think it's going to be a fun game tonight against the Boston Bruins. I don't think that it's going to be without storylines tonight, with Phil Danault starting up to see his Canadiens re-debut tonight. But I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun in terms of being able to set this stage for what is always a heated rivalry game.
Already, Marco, the comments are starting to come in. People looking for a Jake Evans update. I mean, if we start with, we'll tie Jake Evans in and Phil Danault. The fact that I guess we don't know much, if anything at all, about Jake Evans is not good news. We can make that correlation.
Jake Evans is always an interesting topic because the Canadiens have been a little secretive in that regard. And I say secretive in the sense that they haven't really said anything other than he's on IR almost immediately. But that was done so that they can create the roster spot so they could be able to call him up. So when it comes to Jake Evans, I mean, geez, it really is a hot potato situation. I don't think he plays another game in 2025, which I think is understandable. But, you know, he was already someone that didn't look like he was playing at 100%. That injury, you know, he sustained the injury, didn't even bother to stay on the bench, didn't even bother to see what was going on, just went straight to the dressing room. So that is a little concerning. And it makes the acquisition of a guy like Phil Danault that much more clutch. I absolutely think that it was a perfect timing thing. And it really does speak to the overall ability to have depth at center.
So let's get into Phil Danault. Let's talk about his line mates when we talk about Alex Tessier, Josh Anderson, Phil Danault. Like, what's the identity? What are we talking about in terms of the identity? What's the modest expectation that what that line is going to be able to do as early as tonight in Boston here?
Well, I think it's going to be a shutdown line in the sense that it's going to take a whole lot of pressure off of a guy like Nick Suzuki. And I think Nick Suzuki, the poor man, has had to be both the team's number one center and the team's shutdown center at the same time. So having a guy like Phil Danault, who is an excellent elite shutdown player, I think it opens up a whole world of possibilities for the Canadiens from just a standard, right? They're now able to turn around and say, we're playing on the road. We don't have the last change. I don't have to overuse Nick Suzuki because I'm afraid that my third line is going to get exposed against their fourth line. Well, now you have your third line. Let's go for it. You can go toe-to-toe with Pasternak's line, and you could feel confident knowing Phil Danault is there with an Alex Texier and a Josh Anderson. I think that, you know, that affords possibilities. And then you have them out. Who do you put out the next shift? Nick Suzuki's line, and they're more than likely going to play either the second or the fourth line, and I think that's the benefit there.
I know it seems like an obvious question, but going into this game with Boston tonight, 7 o'clock puck drop. The Montreal Canadiens currently third in their division with 43 points and 19 wins. The Boston Bruins, 41 points, 20 wins. in 37 games. Can they win this game without Cole Caufield and Nick Suzuki having a massive night?
I think you always need your number one center to be available. I think that when it comes to being able to beat a team as deep as the Montreal Canadiens, the Boston Bruins are going to need their centers as well. So I think that, give or take, the Canadiens are going to absolutely need to attack the Boston Bruins from the middle of the ice. And so Nick Suzuki is going to have to be at the top of his game, but so is Cole Caufield. I mean, Cole Caufield, again, just snake bitten the last 5 games, going to definitely need to score some big goals. And for me, you know, you have to stop going for the high percentage shots the low percentage shots in the high corners. This is a guy that, you know, did his bidding this season in terms of beating goalies that were cheating and being, you know, that guy that came in, you know, on the sides or coming down low on the short side. Like, you got to go back to basics. And I feel like when it comes time to actually being able to execute, this is a guy that absolutely needs his mojo to get going. So Cole Caufield, to me, has to have a big game, because if he doesn't, you're not really flying on all cylinders, and that's what it's going to take to beat a team like Boston.
You know, I think, again, you know, the Montreal Canadiens are always going to have success when their number one line of Nick Suzuki, Cole Caufield, and Zachary Bolduc in this moment are cooking, right? But what separates the average, what separates the good from the great players, that's consistency. You know, you and I earlier this week, in the aftermath of the second leg of the home and home with the Pittsburgh Penguins, a banner night, statement night for the Kapanen, Slafkovsky, and Demidov night. And I think that's what the coach is looking for. Obviously, the fans always want the best for their favorite team and their favorite players, Marco. But in order to run it back again, right? I mean, that's what we're looking for. You can do it on one night, but the bell's ringing. Can you do it again? I would say it was an inspiring performance, if I could use a word to describe how they looked Sunday in Pittsburgh.
Definitely inspired many people as they were watching them in the comments in their post game. But what I would definitely say when it came to the kid line is it felt like, you know, for those guys that are in the 25 to 40-year-old range, it felt like the good old +5 chemistry rating at NHL, where they just had everything you need. Slafkovsky being the power forward, Kapanen being the two-way center, and Ivan Demidov just being the elite playmaker that he is. I think having those three combined, just they really read each other and they play each other really well. And you have a guy like Slafkovsky right now who's jiving, who's really kind of being that play driver. Ivan Demidov has that vision, has the speed of execution, and is playing like a tough SOB of late, which is, you know, a significant change in his style from the KHL to the NHL, but he's done it really quickly. And then I don't think anybody saw Oliver Kapanen being able to come out like this and be the co-leader in goals for rookies 36 games into the season. I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card. So I think combining those three together, you give yourself the best chance of secondary scoring possible on this team, given what you have, but also you're betting on your future and doing it at the same time. So I think it's good to have them separate from the top line. I think eventually one of those wingers is going to wind up on the top line, and then the other one's going to drive the second line. But it's great to give them options as they slowly start to figure out what their future center line is going to look like.
We're live at the Mison Public McLean's. A couple of listeners, a couple of viewers walked in. One was here. Marco was a contest winner we had, right?
Absolutely,
recently?
Yeah. We had a couple of contest winners because we have another one coming a little bit later today that we're going to be raffling Morella's gift cards to. So we had one from November that couldn't join us at the time, and now we're going to have another one tonight. And that's usually what we do here is we give away prizes, and we come and sit down with you all and see how you're doing and just catch up in terms of being able to talk Habs hockey. So that's the joy of being able to come to McLean's, be it the original McLean's or Public House, is we're able to, you know, shoot the shit after the game, before the game, and really just kind of take care of, you know, the fans in terms of how they engage with us. And really what they end up doing when it comes to the overall benefit of being a Canadiens fan on this show.
You know, if you come down to Mison Public McLean's, this is the first time, Marco, where they have our live show streaming on the public TVs in the establishment. And I just looked over at one of the screens, and there was a Wegovy ad on. I'm like, what? What happened? But I guess it's the ads.
Well, absolutely. I mean, YouTube's got to make its money somehow. Or else, I mean, like, how are we going to make our AdSense money?
Exactly. Lots of questions.
This is why we want to tip our hats off to the fans that deal with even the ads that YouTube imposes on our videos. We apologize.
Amen. And again, as Marco alluded to, we've got McLean's gift cards. Big shout out to our friends at Morella's Steakhouse in Ganawage, right over the bridge. And for outfitting us, they're big fans of the show. We're big fans of them. So come on over. We've got a live watch party all set up for the Montreal Canadiens and Boston Bruins. We've got lots to get to today. And yes, Marco, I mean, there's lots of what's going on with Evans. What's going on with Evans? If you missed it in the intro, we don't know what's going on with Jake Evans. What we do know is that Phil Danault, Alex Tessier, and Josh Anderson is very much a thing. And so is Jacob Fowler. Boston College, in Boston, friends and family. You know what I like about this for this young man? Everyone's been saying it, right? I mean, you're in the room. You've been there. You've spoken to him. He's a cool customer. Doesn't seem to get rattled. And what I like to see from young players is you already look like you belong, Marco. And he's, to me, already on a couple of different instances already passed that test. But this is a big one for him, too, mentally. Emotionally, for him to go to an arena he's played the bean pod in. So he's not a stranger to the bounces of TD Garden, right? And this is one of these, I don't want to say measuring stick game, but it kind of is a little bit.
Absolutely measuring stick game, I would say. To me, this is the biggest game of his career so far. And I think you play against Boston. Like, that's not a small team to play. There's a lot of what's going on in Boston. There's a lot of fans that were around BC, Boston College, where he played with the Eagles, that are going to be taking note, watching him play, that are going to be in there cheering him on. It's old stomping grounds. Like, it doesn't matter if that's not your hometown. It's still going to feel like your hometown because you've spent the better part of 2 years there, kind of just building yourself up and having all those that supported you attend those games. You want to show up for those games. So I fully expect Jacob Fowler to be dialed in like he is in basically every other game. Just, maybe a tad more motivation tonight.
Let's put this comment up from our friend Salil. Will be interesting to see how Marty slots centers when everyone is healthy, from Suzuki to Kapanen to Danault, Evans, plus you have Veleno, Newhook back that could play center, who will be in the AHL. How big of a challenge is this for MSL, managing all of these bodies again?
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a problem right now. I think it'll be a problem when Patrick Laine comes back. Alex Newhook only comes back after the trade deadline. So after the trade deadline, there is no roster limit. You can carry as many players as you want as long as you're cap compliant, which they will be by that point. So I'm not necessarily worried. So fast forward to, maybe mid-January when Caden Gooley comes back. I think that's where they're really going to have to make decisions. And the Canadiens have too many bodies. We know this because they have like 27, 28 players on the roster, give or take, with the injured players. So eventually you're going to have to send some down. But there's only so few players that are waiver exempt. So you're going to have to either waive or trade. And so the Canadiens are going to have a decision to make on their hands. Who do they waive? Do they perform a quantity level trade for a quality level player? We talked about this on other shows. So it really is a question of timing and a question of who could be available and who could be valuable in the eyes of the beholder, which would be, a rival general manager in this case.
We're live at Mison Public. McLean's come by and say hi. We're right on Peel Street. We're here for a watch party. It's the Habs and Bruins at 7 o'clock tonight. And don't forget, Marco and I will be back for our traditional post-game show tomorrow afternoon at 12 p.m. as we wish everybody a very safe and happy holiday period. How dangerous are the Boston Bruins here? We spoke about this on Sunday, talking about getting them at the right time. They've been slumping. They're trailing the Canadiens. This is obviously, it's a big game anytime these original six rivals go tonight. What do you make of how the Bruins have been playing, Marco, with the team separated by just 2 points?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bruins is a different beast entirely, just because this is a team that is kind of built for the win now kind of thing. They did have a good draft, I think, in 2025, but they're definitely in a win now period. They're coming off 3 losses in a row. They're definitely going to want to bounce back. They've had their fair share of injuries this year as well. Obviously, McAvoy, the last time the Canadiens played, almost got his jaw exploded. Pasternak missed some time. Like, they haven't been lucky. And I think that when you look at the overall makeup of that team, their core is built to win now. And I think they have a good amount of depth. And I think they could tip their cat to the Toronto Maple Leafs as well for getting them Fraser Minton and a first-round pick for Brandon Carlo, because Minton has fit in beautifully on their third line. So I think it's a very dangerous team if you consider all of the elements here. And I think the biggest thing that you need to look at when it comes to the Bruins is their strength down the middle. They have significant amount of depth at center, so much so that Casey Middlestad is playing on the wing next to Pavel Zacha. So like they have, I would say, like 4 capable top 9 centers. That's a big deal when it comes to being able to match up against a team like Montreal, because you know that you could take that to them, use it at your advantage, and you have the benefit of the last change. So I think Boston is in a good position here to be able to take advantage of Montreal's lack of depth, but that doesn't take away anything from the Canadiens' ability to take over a game if they really want to.
What about the style of play in terms of how they mesh? We know we've seen this before, and we've reacted to this, obviously. When the Canadiens play a heavy team, a team that's heavy, especially down the middle, a team that has that defensive first mindset where they clog things up and bottle the game up. Stylistically, in terms of how these teams match up, advantage Canadiens with their speed and transition game, how mobile they are on defense versus what they're going to encounter in Boston at 7 tonight.
Yeah, well, I think you need to watch out for guys like Tanner Jeannot. You need to watch out for guys like Nikita Zadorov. You need to watch out for a couple of guys. But I think Montreal is kind of the same thing with Josh Anderson, Arber Xhekaj. Those are guys that wouldn't necessarily be a little bit rougher to play against. So I like the matchup. I don't think the Canadiens will necessarily be, bullied in this case. And I think that's the biggest thing is as long as they're not bullied, as long as they play up to their performance, and they really take the game to the Bruins, then I think this is going to be a pretty chippy, fun hockey game. But I don't see this being the slugfest or the physical, I would say fight finanza that it was the last game that they were at the Bell Center. I think this is going to be more predicated on hockey because the Bruins are a little bit more desperate for that W than they were at the Bell Center.
And a Canadiens team that's going to finish a marathon session, 16 games in 28 days. And they've done, honestly, Marco, cards on the table, they've done better than I thought they were going to do. And I can't help but be so optimistic about the direction this team has taken in the face of injuries, in the face of league worse goaltending, how they've managed to not only stay competitive, but win out, have a 600-point percentage going into this game. And so the result is huge, riffing off what you had said. But there's one player I'd like to dig in a little bit on. And maybe it's me a couple time on my part. Maybe I was too harsh because Arber Xhekaj, man, his game has grown in confidence. And whether you want to credit the player, you want to credit the coach for crediting the player. I mean, the decisions, Marco, we talk about this, stacking shifts, but it's stacking good decisions from Arber Xhekaj that's kept him in this lineup here.
Yeah, I mean, Arber Xhekaj is a tough cookie to crack because the way that you see him play, I think I like his physicality. I think he showed it in the last couple of games. He's starting to find his rhythm in terms of his transition, being able to move the puck up the ice. And I think he's being a little bit more adventurous in the offensive zone and being able to show his reach and of his offensive ability, just being able to take those shots and getting shots through. I think that ultimately when it comes to what holds him back, it's more the decision-making under pressure. It's puck receptions, when he's not in a traditional format. There's a lot of things that make it a little difficult for, I would say, the flow of the game for him. So there's always that extra second or at least half second that he needs to take. But he makes up for that with a ridiculous amount of effort. His reach is really long, so he can make up for it in terms of being able to poke pucks away. So it's all about being able to play to your strengths and covering for your weaknesses. And I think as he matures in his game and he continues to find a way to be able to do that, he's just going to become a better defenseman, which he's shown of late.
I'd love to know how Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon watch these games. Considering how young they are, what they're looking for, and what they could add in terms of what how the injuries impact everything else. Because I think a lot of people agree, right? Like when Kirby Dach returns and gets off IR, he seems dead set to play on the wing at this point.
Oh yeah, I don't know what center they would move. Like I don't think you're moving Kapanen at this point. You're definitely not moving Suzuki. You're not moving Danault. And do you really want to play Kirby Dach in a fourth line setting? I don't see it happening. So I think it makes sense to move him to the wing. And I don't think the top line's been necessarily, working out in terms of a chemistry perspective with Zachary Bolduc. So why not go back to a formula that worked and put him back on the top line with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield? Move Bolduc down to the third line so he can play with Danault and Texier. And then you have, for the time being, something like Veleno, Gallagher, and Anderson as your fourth line. And they're right there. And then you have way more balance and you're able to kind of use those lines to their identity and create, for example, energy on the fourth line, defensive prowess on the third line, and a little bit more offense from your top two lines, more so than we've seen before.
What about this suggestion? As Jake Greenwood, talk about Kirby Dach playing next to Caufield and Suzuki. Where is Zachary Bolduc best suited?
I think Zachary Bolduc is a middle six winger, right? And I think right now, the way the Canadiens are set up, the middle six is a little clogged because you have Slafkovsky, you have Demidov, you have Caufield, and he's currently playing on the top line. Well, you have a Michael Hage coming that could be a winger or a center. You have an Alexander Zhuravsky coming that's going to be a winger. You have, more than likely, the Canadiens are a high-priced winger away from being able to execute on being a cup contender as well. So eventually you're going to need to put all these guys in their spots. And it's not a bad thing if you have a middle six winger playing on your third line. That means you got a deep top six. And I think that's just it, is you absolutely need to have that kind of depth, because if you have the depth, then you're going to be able to have a next man up situation where if you do have an injury, it's not the end of your season. You have a guy like Zachary Bolduc that can go from third to first and not break a sweat. And I think that's the biggest benefit to having quality depth in your lineup. The Canadiens have quality depth. What they need a little bit more of is top end quality.
As we spoke earlier in the show today, talking about the Habs first line and how important it is that these guys show up and do a lot of heavy lifting on a consistent basis. Can we dig on Cole Caufield? The last time the Canadian sniper scored a goal was back in early December against the Pittsburgh Penguins in a 4-2 win. Count them up. It's 6 games now between Caufield, but he is shooting the puck. Ironically, he's coming off a game in the shootout loss where he did not register a shot on goal. But is this ultimately, in your opinion, what prevents Caufield from reaching a completely different level in terms of goal scores in the National Hockey League? Is almost he's got that Pacioretty in him. The goals kind of disappear for a little bit, but when they come, they come fast and furious.
Yeah, goal scorers are streaky. I think that's always been the case. And I think with a guy like Cole Caufield, you become a little dependent in terms of your goal scoring from the players you play with. And I think that it's not by chance that the moment that he started struggling was the moment they removed Uri Slafkovsky from the top line. And I think that speaks to the overall chemistry of that top line and the efficacy of that top line, but also the way that top line is used as both a shutdown line and the number one scoring line. It's an unhealthy combination that overuses your best players. And that's where I think the acquisition of a guy like Phil Danault is going to be ever so important, because it takes a massive load off of Nick Suzuki and it places that responsibility on Phil Danault instead, thereby spreading out, the responsibility and allowing Nick Suzuki to go to what makes him the most important center on the Canadiens, and that's being offensively excellent. And so I that's the way I see it. And so Cole Caufield kind of follows that. But I do want to add some attention, because we always look at Cole Caufield like a goal scorer, and he is. Of course, he's a fantastic goal scorer, but he's a fantastic playmaker as well. And I think that's the side of his game that has truly evolved, because if you look at his stats, he's a point per game player right now. And that's not by chance. That's because he is finding guys. So he may not be scoring, but I would say 75% of Uri Slafkovsky's goals have a Cole Caufield assist on it, and it's not by chance.
So is that more of an indictment on 14 then? I mean, he's on 10 goals, and it seems to me like at least four of them have been courtesy of Ivan Demidov's ability to find Suzuki in his quote-unquote office. If we're talking about Cole Caufield, and I'm not disputing, I see the same version. He's such a well-rounded player. I really enjoy watching Cole Caufield play, but you would think Suzuki would have more than 10 at this point. I wonder what's going on.
Yeah, I think Suzuki also played through an injury. Definitely played through an injury. I think he also is tired in consequence. I mean, it's being played 22 minutes a night, 16 times in 28 days is a little rough. So I think that there's a little bit of fatigue involved. I think you also have to factor in the dual role that he's being asked to play, the defensive and offensive. When you're matching up against an opposition top line, you're going to have to be excellent to have the grand majority of the offense on your side, especially when he's playing with the shutdown defenseman behind him, right? Like if you matched up Lane Hudson with the top line on a regular basis, I think they'd be more inclined to be, offensively gifted and performant in that regard. What you're seeing right now is that Lane Hudson's pairing is being matched with the second line, the kid line, so that he could help them in their transition and be more dangerous on the rush. So it's a quantifiable choice from Martin St. Louis to split these, their best players up in different waves and different deployment. But I think, the cream always rises to the top. Eventually, when you're going to have to go nuclear, all these players are going to play together like they do on the power play.
Jacob Fowler, everybody. Jacob Fowler starting in net tonight. A few people wondering who's in net tonight for the Canadiens. Jacob Fowler. Phil Danault also will make his return to the Montreal Canadiens lineup for the first time since 2021, playing with Anderson and Alex Texier off the hop. You like that combination? Phil Danault saying all the right things, huh? Skating at Brossard, talking about how it feels like he's never left. He's right back at home, feeling the vibe, the energy of La Belle Province, putting the Canadian sweater back on again. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a more everything we've read from since your reporting and everything that's Marco that's come out of Los Angeles since he's been dealt for that second round pick just didn't seem like the most comfy, cozy, I'll be kind, comfy, cozy environment for Phil. And I don't think it's a coincidence he's saying or feeling the way he's feeling since he's come back home.
He literally said he felt useless.
Yikes.
I mean,
Man, who's that on? Who's that on, man? Ken Holland?
On the wounds? Yeah, well, Ken Holland, I think it's more Jim Hiller that's the coach in LA that's really rubbing people the wrong way. Again, they only have one player that has more than 30 points. They only have two players with more than 20 points on their entire roster. So I don't think it's a Phil Danault issue. I think it's a team issue. And I think Phil Danault is going to find his scoring touch with the Canadiens. I have no doubt about it. I think where you really going to have to look to, and I think this is uber important when it comes to being able to evaluate the benefit here. Phil Danault, regardless of the semantics, officially asked for a trade, asked out, suggested a change of scenery. I don't care how you put it, but it was clear that the player had decided that he was no longer relevant to the LA Kings and wanted to go somewhere where he could make a difference, period. And to go back to Montreal, which was his number one destination per source, to me, I think is a win-win for him. And he's exactly what Montreal needed in terms of what to stabilize the bottom six. That doesn't mean that the Canadiens are going to be done. They're still looking for a top six center. I understand a lot of fans are enamored with Oliver Kapanen. He's done great in the way that he has done, but I still think that he's a ways away from being a number two center for real if he ever does get there. He's playing quite well with the players around him. But again, according to a lot of people that watch the games that are much smarter than me, if you isolate him from his wingers, he's just very good at finishing their plays at this moment and playing strong defensively, but doesn't create as much. A number two center, you really want them to do it all. And I think that's where, if the Canadiens are going to have Nick Suzuki as a number one, they're going to need a similar type of player to what I just described as a number two. And then if they have Kapanen as a number three, my goodness, you're off to the races. You're a Stanley Cup contender. And I think we can all agree that if you have if there is a center on the Montreal Canadiens that eventually pushes Kapanen to the number three slot and Danault number four, the Canadiens will have elite, I repeat, elite depth down the middle.
We're coming to you live from Mison Public McLean's on Peel Street in downtown Montreal. Come spend the holidays or get ready for the holidays by spending it with Starr and D'Amico. We're here watching the Canadiens and Bruins, or we will be. We've got pub night trivia coming up between intermissions. We've got gift cards to McLean's. We've got gift cards to Morella's. So lots of motivating reasons. And plus, you get to see Marco's toque and maybe take a photo with D'Amico and have some fun and enjoy the ambiance, the great service, beautiful TVs, no bad seat in the house. More on Phil Danault. I mean, the utilization of Phil, I'm curious to see what Marty's approach is going to be. Does he get power play time?
I would think so. I would play him on the second wave of the power play. Between you and me, and I say this with no disrespect, I'd rather Phil Danault on the second wave of the power play than Brendan Gallagher or Josh Anderson.
I don't disagree.
Like, he can help because think about it right now. You have Kapanen, Dobson. You know what? Never mind. I'm not even going to bother listing them because St. Louis changes them every game anyway. But I think if you have a guy like Phil Danault, you can actually have a guy that can win the faceoffs on the left. You have a guy that can be strong to play against and a guy that's going to be able to cover, in case a defenseman decides to pinch, like a Noah Dobson. He's intelligent enough to be able to know how to position himself defensively. And it makes that line less of a defensive liability on the power play because the PK goal against is real. The shorthanded chance against is real. And so, this is a guy that had success on the Canadian second wave when he was here the first time. I feel like he can bring that extra value. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think that Danault is washed, quote unquote, like I've seen online. I think that he still has great hockey IQ and he works for the puck. So you want a guy that's going to be able to help with puck recuperation? This is exactly the kind of guy you're going to want.
We've spoken about this before, but let's dig in. It's a big game in Boston tonight. The last game before a well-deserved holiday break. The Canadiens marathon in this shortened, tightened season during an Olympic year. When we get into the marathon that has been November into December, the Canadiens sporting a very impressive 9-3-4 road record. Surely, even the MSL haters got to give the coach a little bit of credit, Marco, for how he manages his bench, how he obviously has dealt through the injuries. But is there one thing you can look at that points to the Canadian success on the road for you? Is there something that has stood out with a 9-3-4 record?
The over-reliance on Nick Suzuki. I would say the reliance on his veterans. I think that he often will take the opportunity when he's on the road to go after a lot of these top-end guys when it comes to defensive-minded players. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? When it comes to being able to execute defensive matchups, it's Nick Suzuki's line, and then it was Jake Evans's line. And then the other two lines basically were like, I'll fit you in when I can fit you in. So he would always go back to the well with the same kind of players. But the benefit is those players would always give him that kind of founded success. So it was a win-win in that sense. But the only problem is that formula can only work for so long until those guys get winded because they don't have any puck support. And so that's why you have to be a little careful when it comes to how you utilize some of these guys. You need to be able to roll lines on the road. They've done well. And I'd also say that they've gotten better goaltending on the road than they have at home. That is a verifiable fact. So it's a little bit different. I think the bigger question is why are the Canadiens so bad at home? Not so much why are they so good on the road?
Well, they were so good last year at home, which makes this one so interesting. And I don't think it's that old pet peeve of mine that people love coming to the Bell Center. I still think that applies, but how do you consider how well in a team that was arguably, had lower expectations, they were so much better at home than they've been this year, right? I don't get it. I don't understand why that is, but it's something they've been navigating. At least they got back to 500 at home ice.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with goaltending than anything else, to be completely honest with you. I think it has to do more with a coincidental circumstance than it has to do with anything relating possibly to like a trend while they're at home. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think that they just happen to have players that are better on the road right now that feel it. And to be honest with you, they've played more games on the road to begin with as well. So, you're playing those longer road trips. You're kind of getting into a momentum. And the problem with the Canadiens is being a young team. There's always that trap game when you come back from a road trip where you're winded, you're just happy to get home, but you're dead tired, and you come back home for that game. And more often than not, you're going to lose that return game. Well, that's exactly what the Canadiens run into. And because of the lack of experience and the shaky confidence, well, then that kind of snowballed into losing the second and third game. And that's what we saw basically in the month of November, where the Canadiens came back from a road trip, went on a losing streak, went on a road trip, run on a win streak, came back from the road trip, went on a losing streak. Like it's so synonymous with that. And that's where I think the maturity angle of being able to go in and get a guy like Phil Danault will come into play because he's going to be able to settle things down.
Listen, I apologize for some conflicting feedback on the sound again. And listen, Marco and I use the same microphone. You should have seen us. We were here. What time did I get here? 4:15. Troubleshooting. We had people from the technical side calling us. We're on the phone trying to. I think the long and short of it is, it's a laptop issue on my end, not a microphone issue. Marco and I use the same mic. We're on the same settings. But I'm getting conflicting reports. Some say it's echoey, mute the TV, but Marco's on the same microphone and there's no problem there, like I had mentioned. So I just want to apologize for that, and hopefully we can get over that, and hopefully it's a problem that we can fix pretty soon. The Boston Bruins tonight at home, as we mentioned, kind of reeling a little bit. You know, they've lost 3 in a row. They've lost 4 of their last 5, and it appears that when they lose big. Losing at Minnesota 6-2, losing to Ottawa 6-2, 5-4 shootout, 3-1 to Edmonton. Trying to get this Montreal Canadiens team to it's going to be paramount, is it not? Like the TSN turning point, Marco, when we're reacting to this is, can they get by Jeremy Swayman? If it is, have you seen, I don't know if it's Korpisalo or Swayman today, but trying to get him early and put the Boston Bruins on their heel, that's going to be something that we're going to try to get going here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important it's very important to know which goaltender they're going to play, but you know, Boston is at a point where they're sufficiently deep enough at forward, adequately deep at defense, and then they need the goaltending to be able to stand on their own 2 legs, a little bit like the Canadiens. And we're seeing this a lot more across the league, where if if we have some goalie experts in the house actually that would be able to tell you, but you have to be able to attack the play, challenge the play, and make the big save when you need to. And I think that Montreal isn't the only team that suffered from the lack of that ability. You have to be able to challenge the play and make the forwards guess instead of having the goalie guess what the forward is going to do. So a guy like Swayman, you know, he's shown the consistency of being able to do that. So I would expect him to be the one to play tonight. The Canadiens, like I said, have seen a lot of that from Jacob Fowler in terms of being able to make the important save exactly when you need to. So I think we're in for a very fun little treat between all of them. These are teams that, in my opinion, have the same kind of skeleton, just, you know, at different points in time of their rebuilds.
We're going to do a little bit more on Bryce Pikford, but your reaction to the 3-year ELC, Bryce Pikford and the Montreal Canadiens, the 19-year-old out of Medicine Hat and the WHL, as we spoke about last week, on a historic pace, Marco.
I mean, Bryce Pikford, what a gamble in the 3rd round, picking him at 19 years old in the 2025 draft, 6'1", 185, and has probably one of the prettiest shots I've seen in a junior defenseman in a long time. And I think, you know, the Canadiens usually don't give out entry-level contracts this quick, and we're going to go into detail a little bit more on this week. But when a guy like Bryce Pikford, who is eligible to play in Laval next year, but the Canadiens didn't need to sign him to an entry-level contract for another year and a half. So they could have done the same thing they did with Harvey Pinard or Jared Davidson, which is sign him to a one-year AHL contract next year as to prove the Canadiens right, and then sign him to his ELC. The Canadiens didn't need to be convinced that he was going to be good in Laval. They're seeing the historic season he's having. Boom. Immediate ELC that kicks in next year. This is going to be an interesting prospect. Definitely one of those prospects when you combine that with LJ Mooney and Alexander Zhuravsky for a team that didn't have a 1st-round pick in last year's draft because of the Noah Dobson trade. The 2025 may end up being one of the more valued trades for the Montreal Canadiens, and that is actually pretty cool considering what they had to use in terms of picks in that draft.
Come on down to Mison Public McLean's. We're here for a Habs Bruins watch party. Lots of people already flooding upstairs, downstairs. We've got pub trivia coming up, Marco. And is this true, Marco? You're going to be the trivia master during the first intermission, perhaps? Is this true?
Absolutely. I am a man of knowledge, and therefore I shall be the trivia guy. And
what kind of trivia are we talking about here? Sports, general?
Yes.
Okay, all of the above.
So basically, we're going to be doing one round of general trivia, and then I'm going to put everybody to the test on hockey when it comes to the rivalry between the Boston Bruins and the Montreal Canadiens.
I love it. I mean, Julian McKenzie was around here from The Athletic covering the Ottawa Senators. Was here. Hopefully he can make his way up and we can have a few moments talk Ottawa Senators hockey because
absolutely not.
The Buffalo Sabres, brother. I mean, if we move around the league for a second, the Leafs are imploding. they're pulling I saw lots of people bring up the Perry Pern comparison when they fired the guy an hour before the game, and then the wheels on the bus started to fall off. They fired the coach, and then they fired the general manager. But what do you make of Jarmo Kekalainen and perhaps instilling a new culture in Buffalo? We hear the coach bounce. Teams play well on a car. I've never heard of the new GM and the team responding the way they have.
I think it's coincidental. I don't think that Jarmo Kekalainen is a sorcerer with magical powers that invokes good vibes onto his team. You could even say like it's the Marc Bergevin effect. I don't believe in that stuff. I think that the Sabres were already on a good run prior to the firing of Kevyn Adams, right? They had won 3 straight by the time he was fired. The Sabres just made a decision that it was just time to move. They weren't feeling it. And what's even more like wild to me is that even though Kevyn Adams was on the way out, he still made a pretty legitimate offer for a guy like Quinn Hughes right before he got fired. So that goes to show you how little dysfunctional things are in Buffalo. But I mean, listen, the players are pissed. The players have had enough. The players want to win. At this point, I understand that they're Canadiens rivals, but man, you just want to see these guys at least come close to a playoff berth, if not make the playoffs. And to Canadiens fans, hopefully not in spite of the team that you cheer for, but it's almost sad at this point, and you wish them well. And, if Jarmo Kekalainen is the one to, create a spark, then that's great. But they've got big decisions on their hands because Alex Tuch is still not signed. They still have an excess of left shot defensemen. I mean, for the love of God, Dahlin, Power, Bowen Byram, Matthias Samuelsson. You don't need that many. You need 2 of those guys, if maximum 3. So
right.
We need to take some of those guys and monetize them elsewhere because they need help at forward. And
do they have a goalie in Devon Levi? I mean, is this going to be someone that's going to be a part of their long-term future when this team starts to get better and play some games?
Yo no sé. All I got to say when it comes to a guy like Devon Levi is he's a guy that wants his opportunity, but he's definitely got to start. He's got to earn it. He's been good, but not great in the American Hockey League. And that's the risk with goaltenders that are, under 6'1", 6'2", is that, they generally have easier times in the lower levels. But when you start getting to the higher levels, as much as it pisses me off to say this, the extra inch or 2 does count.
That's what she said. It's the Boston Bruins and Montreal
Shaun, my
Canadiens.
mother listens to this. What are we doing?
Listen, earmuffs, mom. It's the holidays. I've had a Caesar. Apologies. Can I blame it on the Caesar? Apologies in advance. It's the Boston Bruins at 7:00 tonight, as we mentioned already. They've lost 3 in a row, and they've lost 3 in a row all at home. 4 of their last 5 overall. This is when they went on a 4-game winning streak. But are you buying what the Bruins have been selling this season, or are they the next version of the Penguins once the shoe drops and the losses start to mount? Have they overshot what many people thought they would look like this deep into the season before the holiday break?
It's tough to say, right? Because I didn't think that they were necessarily.
Numbers are off the charts starting there, right?
Yes. Morgan Geekie's numbers are well off the charts, but I think they're off the charts because his confidence is through the roof, and obviously getting to play with a guy like David Pastrnak. I mean, that to me is a hard candidate, is David Pastrnak. I think he's been fantastic for the Bruins. Without a superstar like Pastrnak, I think the Bruins, probably flirting with last in the Eastern Conference. This is a guy that I truly think is going to be a game changer for them, and is going to be the main reasons why they don't ever rebuild fully, because he's just such an elite player. But I think ultimately, the shoe will drop in the sense that they've gotten a lot of luck offensively, but the expected outcomes are generally much lower than what they are. And so they've been playing above their level for a while. Now you've seen them kind of come back down to earth for a bit. I think it's somewhere in the middle. And I think they're going to be in the chase the whole way through because the Atlantic is just so freaking open right now.
I know.
But, I think the thing with me is that when you have Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov.
Oh boy!
That's
not him
enough
again.
Top 3. That's a good enough top 3 for me to be able to keep up with the rest of the Atlantic. It's definitely a better defensive core than the Toronto Maple Leafs.
You want to talk on the Leafs a little bit and your read on, Mark Savard being the scapegoat here a little bit. Craig Berube says one thing about the team. They go to the captain. They go to Austin Matthews. He basically says a 180 of what Craig Berube had said. He thought they had good habits. Berube said they didn't have good habits. I mean, it's two different perspectives from two people on the same team. I mean, to say this is a little bit of a tire fire might be a little bit of an understatement of what's going on in Toronto these days.
It is a tire fire, and I don't think the tires are done burning. No. And I think I would be shocked if Berube finished the season. I would be shocked. Absolutely floored from what I'm hearing.
They're going to pivot for the number one pick? I mean, are they going to pick a lane aggressively or what? They're just going to shit the season and just tank the rest of the way? And
I don't know that they're going to do that. I think that if they do some major surgery on the roster, it'll be an off-season trade. But what I will tell you is this. The Toronto Maple Leafs first-round picks belongs to the Boston Bruins. Unless the Toronto Maple Leafs pick is a top 5 pick.
That is protected, right? Right.
Then it's protected. And then guess who owns their 2027 first-round pick? The Philadelphia Flyers. So there is no help coming to Toronto for a long time. And I wish them well. But I think when you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, this is what happens when you decide to replace an 100-point player with 25 cents. You can't replace $1 with 4 quarters. That only works in a bank. And, for me, Mitch Marner was one of the most underrated players in any market from any fan base. And he scored 100 points on a regular basis. That's how much he had an impact. And I think you're seeing it now that Austin Matthews has less points than Lane Hudson, and he's a forward, and Lane Hudson plays defense. That don't make sense. And, even Juraj Slafkovsky's outpacing him at this point. It's not good when your $14 million forward isn't producing. And it really goes to show you how reliant the Maple Leafs offense was in going through Marner, because Marner not only helped them offensively, but it helped limit the exposure and how bad the defensive brigade was for the Toronto Maple Leafs for at least 20 minutes in a game.
Right. It's everything you're saying. I get it. And it all adds up to, it's not a Craig Berube problem, right? It's it runs deeper than who's filling up the lineup card and who's making the lineup call every night. I mean, it would be another kind of scapegoat issue, because it seems like they tried to, the identity, they fell into the trap of our identity. And so they brought in a tough as nails, air quote, tough as nails head coach, and it's gone completely sideways. Austin Matthews looks slower than ever. Ovechkin sometimes looks faster than Austin Matthews,
Damn! Talk about shots fired. Listen, I think that when it comes to Matthews, I think there's a motivation issue involved for sure. I don't think there's good vibes. Already there were problems in the dressing room. Anthony Stolar's comments, Willie Nylander's comments, no bueno, baby, no bueno. And I think that speaks to team culture and building that culture up. Toronto never had that. And I think I was talking about this on a national platform today on Daily Faceoff. Shout out Johnny and Colby. I think the difference, if you look at the core, for example, between Montreal and Toronto, they always really went for the dollar. It was always about the money, the fame, but it was never really about the team. With Montreal, you see these guys taking, hometown discount after hometown discount after hometown discount, basically paying it forward for the next player that has to sign their contract. No pressure, Ivan Demidov, but you have these guys making less. Can we just Lane Hudson is making $8.85 million as of next year for the next 8 years. That'll be one of the steals of contracts that the Athletics Dom Lucian is going to have on his board for the next decade. So just when you have that kind of culture built in where they're absolutely willing to go to bat for each other at the negotiation table, how do you not root for that? How do you not want to build around that? And the beauty about the Canadiens is that they haven't had to dip into free agency like the Leafs did when they signed Tavares. And I think what makes this funnier to me is the Leafs are this bad despite Tavares basically taking a 30% pay cut.
Yeah.
And them replacing them like that money that they didn't spend with like Matthias Michelli, Nicolas Roy. And so to me, you are not doing your job as a general manager with the assets that you have available to be able to quantify them and monetize them into being able to get you more top six help, which they desperately need. Montreal, they have all the assets in the world right now, a boatload of prospects, a bunch of promising guys that are knocking on the door at the NHL level, and the cap space galore in years ahead of them. This was the last year where they were really going to be close to the cap.
I think the takeaway after this conversation around both the Sabres and Maple Leafs organization is, for me anyway, I think you'd rather, if I gave you in the palm of my left hand, you can be the Maple Leafs organization today and moving forward, or in the palm of my right hand, you can be the Sabres organization and take them and move forward. I'm going Buffalo all day, every day. And that would have been crazy to say, a year ago, 2 seasons ago. But I think that's just the reality of where these organizations are today, with prospects, protected assets, and trying to forecast the future here.
I think where I would go with this is, first of all, the core is locked in long-term, first and foremost. I think that's very important in Buffalo. And I think the other thing is that they have so many assets that they could probably trade their way out of this if they do it right. Toronto has no snowballs of a hope's chance right now because they don't have a first-round pick till 2028. They're not moving Easton Cowan, so their best prospect to move is Ben Danford, who at best is going to be a number 4, but more likely a number 5 defenseman. So they don't have much to give right now. They don't have much to give that can help them, that can bail them out in a serious way without performing massive surgery on the roster. And so that's seriously problematic. Whereas you look at a team like the Buffalo Sabres, outside of the Josh Norris acquisition for Dylan Cousins, like that hurts. But at least when it came to trading a guy like, oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? JJ Peterka, they got Josh Doan, who looks like he's a fantastic middle six winger, and Kesselring, who's going to be a top 4 right shot defenseman for years to come. Like, it's not like they made out bad on that trade, as bad as people thought they were at the moment where the trade went down. And I think that's the most important part. So when you look at their ability to perform, I think they're still in business. All they need right now, the Buffalo Sabres, is savvy general manager Ing from Jarmo Kekalainen and his new group. And I think that they would be able to, unfortunately for Canadiens fans, I think they'll be able to at least make themselves competitive.
I don't know what it's going to take or why it is the way that it is, but the Montreal Canadiens remain one of the most penalized teams in the National Hockey League. The Boston Bruins, however, can make you pay, sir. Operating power play just under 27%. Your perspective on how big special teams are going to play in deciding a winner tonight?
Massive. I think it's going to be massive. I think both teams play off their power play right now. I think both, we've seen it before. And I think that if the Montreal Canadiens are going to have any success, they're going to need to get momentum from their special teams. And I think that's where the acquisition of a guy like Phil Danault helps, because it's not always on the power play you get momentum. We saw it, if you remember, that 5-on-3 that Jakub Dobeš and team killed a couple, 10 days ago.
Yeah.
How much
my God,
in terms of momentum after being able to kill that 5-on-3 and go back the other way? They took it, and I think that having a guy that helps you not lose momentum on the penalty kill is huge, because I feel like that's where the Canadiens have lost a lot of their momentum over the last month.
Big game for Jacob Fowler back in Boston, where he played with BC. He's played in this rink before in a massive collegiate tournament at the Beanpot. I like the Montreal Canadiens' chances tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another low-scoring kind of game. Jacob Fowler on top of his point, on top of his rebound control. And I think the Montreal Canadiens can win this game in a 4-2 final. Your thoughts on ultimately how this game plays out as we say goodbye from Mison Public McLean's?
I'm expecting a tight game. I said 4-3 on NESN, but I didn't know if Phil Danault was playing. Now that I know that Phil Danault is playing, I'm going to go 3-2 Canadiens.
Phil Danault playing with Alex Tessier and Josh Anderson and Jacob Fowler in goal. And sorry, Hab fans, no update on Jake Evans as the Montreal Canadiens move into the Christmas break. And with that, Marco, we say goodbye from our third live show on Mison Public McLean's been a lot of fun today, as usual.
As usual, and we thank you all for coming out. We see all these fans downstairs from us right now, just waving over, but we invite you to come. We're going to be doing this again in January, February, and all the way into, if the Canadiens go into the playoffs, all the way into the playoffs. So that'll be the time for us for you guys to come and join in. We'll have more prizes for you in January, and we thank you all for your support. Thank you all for following this account. And we look forward to seeing you in the new year. For those that we don't see between now and the 31st of December, we just want to wish you a happy holiday season and, of course, happy New Year's. And thank you again for following us here at the Starr and Danault Show.
And we'll be here tomorrow. Well, not here, but on this channel where you're watching and listening at noontime tomorrow for a recap of the game we're all going to watch together at Mison Public McLean's. Marco, thanks as always, brother. Enjoy the Trivia Master coming up between periods. Still time to come on down, have a bite to eat and a great drink at a great place at Mison Public McLean's.